I felt like, they had like, a whole lot of potential. Jay was more quiet. But I mean, I learned that Jay was being quiet because he was taking notes. He was taking notes, observing everything, taking it all in. Because, sometimes you around and you're watching to see things to do.
They say every empire collapses not with thunder, but with a whisper. And for Diddy, that whisper was caught on tape. The FBI's undercover sting unfolded like a crime thriller. A handpicked cellmate, not an inmate but an informant, slipped into his world like a shadow. For weeks, inside a suffocating concrete cage, every laugh, every word, every pause became currency. The friend played his role perfectly, listening, joking, earning trust. Until one night, when Diddy believed prison walls guarded his secrets, he let his guard down.
Lawyers, that he's 3 law firms on retainer. I don't know how much money is coming in, but I know that a lot of money is going out every single month for Diddy.
The sheer cruelty of the operation lies in its elegance. Imagine the moment of realization, the gut punch betrayal. When Diddy discovered his brother in captivity wasn't a fellow inmate, but an FBI plant, wired and waiting, capturing every word. What he revealed wasn't hearsay, wasn't bitter gossip. It was his own unguarded voice detailing the order, the payout, the players in the room. For decades, the murder of Tupac Shakur has lived in a fog of rumors and half-truths. Fingers pointed at Suge Knight, at West Coast gangs, at nameless shadows. But Diddy's name always hovered on the periphery, never proven, always whispered. If this tape is real, it cuts through that fog like a blade. It's not conspiracy anymore. It's not legend. It's confession. A smoking gun that could rewrite hip-hop history and finally give prosecutors the key they've chased since 1996. But that raises a chilling question. Does the tape truly exist? And if it does, will it be enough to strip away the last of Diddy's power and lock him away forever?
Diddy 77 times in court documents related to Tupac's murder.
This isn't just about closing the book on Tupac or settling some decades-old score. The whispers suggest something far bigger. An FBI play that sees Shakur's case not as the finish line, but as the entry point. That confession, if real, isn't just evidence of a murder. It's a thread woven into a wider web, racketeering, trafficking, the hidden machinery that fueled Diddy's empire. The freak offs, the coercion allegations, the raid discoveries of locked rooms, secret tapes, and those bizarre thousands of bottles of oil. Each piece feels less like rumor and more like puzzle fragments falling into place.
I think that they don't want, if they was in any of those freak off tapes, if they played a part in any of those Diddy sessions, they don't want it to get out to the general public to make up their brain.
Now we're entering the territory where conspiracy stops being whispers and starts sounding like a script too strange not to question. The second rumor flips the entire narrative. What if Diddy's role wasn't to erase Tupac, but to erase him from public life, to engineer a vanishing act? The Cuba sightings, the locals swearing they saw him walking the Havana streets, the whispered accounts of body swaps in the morgue, these are the details that keep the myth alive. Michael N.Y. claiming he personally helped smuggle Pac out, painting vivid images of a man embracing freedom instead of succumbing to bullets. Even Suge Knight, cryptic as ever, dropping that haunting hint. Because Shakur not gone, the cracks in the official record make the speculation harder to dismiss. Why no vest that night, when Pac was rarely without one? Why the sparse eyewitness accounts on one of the busiest nights in Vegas? Why the autopsy inconsistencies, wrong height, wrong weight, and those infamous photos many call doctored? Then there's the man who cremated Shakur, cash in hand, gone without a trace days later taken alone. They are quirks. But together, they sketch something closer to theater than tragedy.
And I was big man. That was the extent of our beef.
If Diddy truly admitted his hand in the plot, the question that haunts fans is whether he was bragging about arranging Shakur's death or confessing to a role in a cover-up so elaborate it makes Hollywood look tame. A theory fueled by alleged sightings of Tupac in places like Havana and Baez, photos that spark endless debate, and lyrics in his posthumous albums that read like coded messages, especially within Asterisk the Don Illuminati. The 7-Day Theory Asterisk, where Machiavelli famously rearranges to I'm alive K. For believers, these aren't coincidences but deliberate breadcrumbs, reinforced by Shakur's mother once saying her son had chose to leave quietly, a word that suggests agency, not victimhood. If true, then Diddy's role becomes far stranger than a mob-style hit, hinting instead at a partnership. a deal forged in whispers and perhaps financed by blood money, making his supposed confession less about simple guilt and more about exposing the mechanics of a plan the world was never meant to uncover.
Now, I ain't trying to say that's some kind of conspiracy, and maybe some other shit was going on, or this, that, and the third. But brother, he had that conversation with K. Slate 2 weeks before he was murdered.
The thought alone raises a chilling possibility. If Shakur was smuggled out because a hit had been placed on him, who ordered it? And why was Diddy's name always hovering so close to the fire? Was he paying to silence a rival, or funding an escape that spun out of control? When you line up the missing witness in his current trial, the federal raids, and the testimonies of gang insiders like Kef D, who claimed Diddy offered millions for blood on the streets, the puzzle pieces start to interlock. The money, the fear of Suge Knight, the diss tracks that cut too deep.
And you gotta figure, we never met.
So you and Tupac never met. That was just.
And here lies the cruelest irony. As Diddy sits in a cell, staring down accusations that could end his freedom forever, the world once again chants the name of Shakur louder than his own. Whether Tupac lies beneath the earth or lives in exile puffing a cigar, his ghost now outshines Diddy's legacy. That is the true downfall. The empire reduced to whispers on tape, a reputation undone by the very secret he believed would never escape his lips. If the FBI really holds that recording, it's not just the collapse of a career, it's the resurrection of one of music's greatest mysteries, blazing out of the shadows to demand. Asterisk, what else has been buried in silence? Asterisk, and if the operation that trapped him was crafted to pull this confession, then perhaps it was never about one man's guilt alone,
And
but
that was to destroy East Coast rap. And what I mean by that, and I know people gonna like, yo, Gene is out of his mind and everything like that. Check this out, bro.
rumors swirl that this is only the opening act, with federal prosecutors reaching back into the 90s to weave Tupac's case into today's indictments, framing Diddy's empire as something never built on music alone. The echoes are haunting: million-dollar bounties back then, NDAs and silence victims now, missing witnesses then, missing evidence today. Each thread points to the same tapestry, a pattern of control, secrecy, and intimidation finally breaking under its own weight. Which forces the question, what if Shakur's fate isn't just a cold case, but the cornerstone of the story unfolding right now? What if solving what happened that night in Vegas isn't just about the past, but
Are scared of Diddy, and they're scared of like how powerful he is and the things that he can do to them?
I don't think they are scared of him. I think they more so.
the man planted in Diddy's cell wasn't just an undercover agent in prison clothes. He was a weapon, a master manipulator trained to dismantle walls without force. He studied every twitch of Diddy's face, knew when to nod in silence, when to share a laugh, when to mirror a gesture so perfectly it blurred the line between ally and stranger. Each conversation wasn't casual, it was a move in a psychological chess game where trust was the prize. And the FBI, meticulous as ever, handpicked him for this very role, knowing paranoia only lasts so long before loneliness craves companionship.
You get it? So Puff would have to do something like that if he get on the stand. Now, as far as, is he going to turn people in? Is he going to cooperate? If the federal government wants him to cooperate, and they're going to cut his time, because right now he's looking at 15 to life.
We can almost see the moment it hit him. The betrayal flooding in like ice water, the horror of realizing his late-night confessions weren't secrets shared in the dark but bait carefully laid for a hidden recorder. For weeks he believed he'd found a kindred spirit, someone who understood the crushing weight of power, fame, and downfall. Instead, he'd been pouring his soul straight into the hands of the government.
They laid the blueprint for me, and they're not here anymore. So I always want to make sure that, through me, what I'm saying, through all of us, so that they live on.
The deeper we dig, the more Shakur's music feels less like entertainment and more like a coded journal of prophecy. His lyrics pulse with warnings, dark messages about betrayal, power, and survival, that now echo like foreshadowing. In Asterisk Ambitions as a rider Asterisk he proclaimed himself untouchable, almost daring fate to test him. In Asterisk Hail Mary Asterisk the mood shifted, thick with shadows of betrayal and death, a tone fans today analyze line by line as if it were scripture. His fascination with Machiavelli, the master of deception and survival, wasn't just an aesthetic choice. Adopting the alias Asterisk Machiavelli Asterisk was a statement of strategy, maybe even a blueprint for faking his downfall. Was Shakur warning us that Judas walked beside him? If that Judas was Diddy, Then prophecy has bled into reality, no longer hidden in metaphor but alive in trial transcripts and FBI tapes. The eerie overlap between art and life makes this scandal feel almost supernatural, as if Shakur foresaw the treachery long before it unfolded. His posthumous verses, obsessed with trust betrayed,
If that's part of the indictment, that's almost like a blackmail. He was blackmailing people to be in the freak off. So that's federal. That could be that's a federal charge. He can't blackmail people to say, "Yo, listen here, you did it once and you're gonna do it again." That ain't gonna make it with the government or nobody.
The weight of these revelations doesn't just linger in dusty history. It slams directly into the present with the force of a bomb. If the rumored confession tape is real, the consequences for Diddy are nothing short of apocalyptic. He already faces charges that could cage him for life, but an admission tying him to Shakur's death would tear the courtroom wide open. The FBI doesn't even need to release the full recording. Its existence alone is a loaded weapon, and prosecutors know exactly when to pull the trigger. Imagine a jury hearing those words echo in the silence of a federal courtroom. The impact wouldn't just convict a man, it would shake an entire culture. This isn't another tabloid scandal about a celebrity's excesses, it's the reopening of hip-hop's deepest wound. The East Coast versus West Coast feud was supposed to have ended in tragedy, but pinning Shakur's end directly on Diddy rewrites everything we thought we knew.
So they was placed to destroy the East Coast rap. And then, along came a somebody. They was about to bring East Coast rap back. And there's nothing they could do about it. And this kid was gonna put East Coast.
4 years, the spotlight has burned Suge Knight as the central villain in Shakur's death. His presence in the car, his reputation for violence, his long list of enemies all made him the perfect suspect. But what if that was the point? What if Suge wasn't the mastermind, but the decoy, allowing the narrative to cement around him while the true architects operated unseen? His silence, his refusal to clarify what really happened, may not stem from ignorance but from calculation. Suge understood power. And in the world he ruled, silence was currency. If he suspected Diddy's hand in orchestrating the hit, keeping quiet would become his ultimate leverage. The less he revealed, the more control he held, turning himself into the keeper of secrets others couldn't afford to have exposed. That silence could shield him, or it could shield the entire structure of an industry built on unspoken deals and buried truths.
Sean had to take responsibility for what he did as an individual. Sean is the one who pulled that gun out. Sean is the one who shot. So he has to take responsibility for that.
And that's where the story takes its darkest turn. The idea that Suge's silence wasn't just strategy, but complicity. If both men recognized Shakur not simply as a rival, but as a destabilizing force who threatened their reputations, their empires, and their financial survival, then his death begins to look less like chaos and more like a pact. Suge, publicly cast as the bullet-grazed survivor, may have been playing the role of victim while privately calculating how much easier it would be to control the game without Shakur on the board. This interpretation reframes the feud as less about East versus West, and more about power consolidation. If Diddy and Suge both stood to gain from Shakur's absence, then the silence wasn't just protection, it was preservation of the empire they were both building in their own ways. The industry, after all, thrives on scapegoats. Let the blame drift toward the streets, let conspiracy theories run wild, while the true arrangement remained cloaked, and here's where the stakes grow even bigger.
Because him and Diddy was given that deal, we gotta keep these East Coast rappers down. Because down south rappers, Cash Money, No Limit, Ludacris and them, they was taking little money and bringing back more money and making more money for them.
It's no wonder the comparisons to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell keep surfacing when people talk about Diddy's empire. Just as those names became shorthand for hidden power and exploitation, Diddy's world is now painted in the same light, a labyrinth of money, silence, and shadows. And if the federal government views this not as a celebrity scandal but as a network that must be dismantled, then the alleged confession about Shakur isn't the endgame, it's the first domino to fall. The question is, will we ever hear the tape? If prosecutors keep it sealed, it becomes a weapon waiting for the perfect moment. If they release it, the shockwaves will be instant, rattling courtrooms, studios, and the very foundations of hip-hop culture. Either way, one truth is unavoidable. The past is no longer buried, and what's rising to the surface could rewrite everything. It's moving, alive, and dangerous. And here's the most chilling part. If this is true, no one in the industry is safe. Every rival, every label head, every associate from the 90s who thought their secrets were buried could be next in line. Shakur's story may have ended on the Vegas Strip, but its aftershocks are only now reaching full force. The storm is here, ripping through everything in its path. So, we ask you, do you believe the FBI really has the tape? Could this be the final chapter in one of music's greatest mysteries, or the beginning of something even darker? Drop your thoughts below, because this isn't just history being rewritten, it's unfolding right now. Until next time, stay sharp, stay questioning, and remember, in this world of fame and shadows, nothing is ever what it seems.